Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moving to Costa Rica. My very special guest today is Mr. Jose Sanchez. He is an attorney with a lot of experience based out of Jaco. So Jose, it's great to have you here. We're going to cover several topics today. We're going to talk about things like banking. So when you move to Costa Rica, how do you get a bank account? The real estate acquisition process, so what's involved. We're going to talk a little bit about asset protection and really just wherever the conversation takes us. So let's get right into it. So Jose, let's say that someone wants to move to Costa Rica, and one of the first things they might naturally ask is, how do I get residence and how do I go about getting bank accounts and those kind of things? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Costa Rica has a residency program for foreign residents. They have different categories or status that you can qualify. The main ones we have are a retiree or pensionado. It's an individual earning $1,000 of pension per month from any government source. For example, a Social Security pension or Canada Revenue pension or any type of pension. Typically, the embassy in San Jose has an office that issues the letter. The Social Security department at the embassy, they issue the letter in Spanish to immigration attesting that the individual earns $1,000 pension, and that qualifies you. Another one is called is rentista or rentist, which is an individual earning $2,500 a month from an institutional source, from a consolidated institutional source. For example, some type of annuities or some type of deposit with a financial institution. Typically, what individuals do is they deposit, to qualify under this status, they deposit the sum of $60,000 in any financial institution, either in Costa Rica or abroad, with the instructions that the institution starts disbursements of $2,500 to the individual once immigration approves your status. So they will issue a letter saying they received the $60,000 certificate deposit to hold for 2 years during the time of approval of the residency. And the individual will withdraw $2,500 a month. $2,500 times 24 months, that's the $60,000. That's the rentista, okay? The other status we have is investor. Any acquisition of real estate, or it also applies for securities as well, if you buy securities in the exchange. But any acquisition of real estate, house, apartment, condominium, declared at the time of purchase at $200,000. So acquisition of an asset of $200,000 tax value, and of course paying the taxes on that amount to the municipality, real estate taxes, qualifies you as investor, and you will be able to have residency as long as you own the asset.
Does that have to be a real estate asset, or it could be a business?
It could be a business as well, or securities or a business, and there is also another status which is called micro-entrepreneur. Micro-entrepreneur is when you incorporate any type of business, let's say a restaurant or a store or a school, any type of legal business with the business license from the municipality, the sanitary permit, the income tax and sales tax or value-added tax, Social Security payroll tax and workers' compensation insurance. When you have all those papers and the business employs at least one Costa Rican on payroll, okay, then you qualify as micro-entrepreneur regardless of the size of the business. It's micro-entrepreneur is another status. And then there are other statuses like development of projects. That's if you are going to develop some type of macroeconomic project. Then for that one, then you need the permits, the project permits and the feasibility studies, the certified accountant CPA certification of the investment. That's a more complex one. Typically, we do the more common ones are retiree, pensionado, the $60,000 CD, or the real estate acquisition. We need 2 papers from your home country. We need a birth certificate and a criminal records letter from the federal authority if it's a federal country. And those 2 documents, they need to be authenticated by the state secretary, or what we call apostille. They need to be apostilled, translated to Spanish, and then we do
here.
No, in the country of origin.
Okay.
By the Secretary of State or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the country of origin. If it's Canada, it's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If it's the United States, it's the apostille, because the U.S. signed the Apostille Convention of Recognition of Foreign Documents. The processing time varies. is from 2 to 3 years. But once we file for residency, you obtain an electronic receipt, and then you don't have to leave Costa Rica after 90 days if you don't want to, because you have already filed for residency.
Once you file, then you're just waiting for the final approval to come in, and you can stay here.
Correct. Once you file, we receive the official receipt with your name, passport number, file number. It's an electronic receipt, and you don't have to live during those two years. You can live, of course, but you don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have to because it's being processed.
Between filing and getting the final approval, how long is that typically?
Typically it takes between 2 to 3 years.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years.
All right, so that's how you can come here and get residency. So what's the next step with getting bank accounts? What do they specifically have to do?
With the banking system, we have 4 state banks bonded by the government up to $100,000. And then we have private banks. Private banks, we have Scotiabank from Canada. We have BAC, which is a Colombian-owned bank, but established in Miami and all over Central America. And then we have other private banks that specialize in different fields, like Improsa or Promerica or Da Vivienda Bank. No American banks. We used to have Citibank before, but not anymore. We usually work with the Scotiabank or state-bonded banks, BCR or Banco Nacional. And if you don't have residency, you're allowed to open a bank account with your passport and a utility receipt as proof of residence, proof of address. But the account is capped around $3,000 a month. Is the amount of turnover of the money that you can move through the account. Once you get residency, then you can open a bank account with your residency card with no limits, and you could also be eligible to apply for a bank loan, a mortgage loan, for example, or a house purchase loan once you have the residency. What we usually do before your residency for the banking, we incorporate a limited liability company, LLC, and through the LLC with a letter, using the LLC to open the account with a letter of cash flow by a certified public accountant, then you can do unlimited amount of banking, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, any amount of money. Of course, there is an anti-money laundering law. In any bank in Costa Rica, if you're going to deposit more than $10,000, you need to present documents attesting the origin of the funds.
So just so I understand, so you're saying someone who doesn't have residence here, they could come to Costa Rica, get a personal bank account, and you're saying it's about up to $3,000 a month coming in and out, and they don't need to have a company for that. They could just walk into a bank and get a personal bank account with a utility receipt. Okay, got it. Okay, very interesting. So someone's got their residence, or they've started the process, now they've got their bank account set up, and naturally they want to look at getting some real estate after that. Talk to me about the process. So for a foreigner to come here, if they want to buy an apartment, say in a town like Jaco, a condo overlooking the ocean, what is the process from start to finish to buy that property?
Once you have identified the unit that you want to purchase, then we start a due diligence verification process that involves checking the title of the property on the public records. We have a national public property registry under the Ministry of Justice where titles are recorded in a microfilm system, and it's also accessible online.
By anyone or just an attorney?
It's a public registry, so anyone can have access to all the information is public record. Which status of the taxes, both municipal, corporation taxes, and luxury house, because there is a luxury house tax. And we check, optionally we may do an inspection by an engineer or a constructor or an architect, an inspection to check the electric system, the plumbing, the air conditioning system. We may do an inspection, and then we set up an escrow account with a company that has a special license to handle the escrow, and they have a presence here and in the United States as well, so they can handle the escrow in the US as well. Typically, you put a down payment or earnest money of 10%. That's typical, and the closing within 45-60 days. We will verify the title of the property. We do a 10-year retroactive search on the record to see the 10-year line of ownership. 10 years because 10 years is the statute of limitation for any claim, both under civil law and criminal law. Any claim after the 10-year statute of limitation, it operates and there cannot be further claims. So we do a 10-year background history on the property. The cadastral map, the survey map, If you're buying a plot of land, we may hire a surveyor to verify the accuracy of the survey, that there are no encroachments. Then we draft the contract, the purchase and sale agreement contract, with the main terms, the method of payment, the distribution of the closing costs. Typically, the seller pays the real estate broker, the buyer pays their own attorney, the seller pays their own attorney, and they split the property transfer taxes. Closing costs range close to the 4%, including the attorney and the property transfer taxes. Once the funds are funded in the escrow account, we proceed to make the closing. After the due diligence period, we sign the property transfer deed on the protocol book of indentures, or the grand deed, property transfer deed. That one is in Spanish, it's on a protocol book of the notary, attorney, notary public. It gets signed by the parties, the escrow company makes the disbursements, and then we file it. We file it to the National Registry. Before COVID, the filing was done in paper. Now with COVID, we have an electronic system with electronic signature to file it, and the processing time ranges around 4 weeks. When it gets recorded, we get an electronic certificate emailed to us from the National Registry, and then we prepare a municipality real estate tax department new owner declaration, which is a form. We fill it out with the data of the property, the title, the cadastral map, and the owner, the new owner, the passport or the juridical identity number of the LLC, and we file it to the muni. That's the process, more or less. 6 weeks, 4% closing costs. The municipality real estate taxes are a quarter point, so 0.25 or 0.25%, a quarter of a percentage per year.
And so another question that people might have is, okay, they've found a place that they really like. They want to know, can I get financing from one of these banks, either a private bank or one of the other banks? So what's it like for someone, say, from the USA to get a loan to acquire a house in, say, Jaco?
With the financing, we have two situations: before the 2008 mortgage crisis and after.
Okay.
Before the 2008 mortgage crisis, the real estate market was so robust, the dynamic was so robust that the banks were financing. Some Costa Rican banks, like Scotia Bank, back then Citibank, Wachovia, I believe it was Wachovia Bank, they were financing foreigners buying land in Costa Rica. But that changed after the 2008 mortgage crisis. That changed, and it doesn't happen anymore unless you have residency. If you have residency, then you will be eligible to apply for a bank loan. There is also seller finance or developer finance. Seller finance is very, very common. It's very frequent. Normally, either with the bank or with the seller, you have a down payment of 30%, because less than 30% is not worth to incur all the expenses of the mortgage, and the financing will be on the 70%. The interest rates are obviously higher than the United States, so don't expect anything like the US or Canada. The interest rates are for personal house purchase in the 8-9% per year with the bank, and with the seller finance could be the same or more, up to 10 or maybe 12%. And there are also private money lenders. They will start around 12% per year, private money lenders, okay? But seller finance, we have seen seller finance at 5% per year, up to 10%, and it's very simple. Just give the down payment, 25%, 30%, and the seller finance will carry a mortgage 3 to 5 years, for example. That will give you time to apply for residency, and then once you establish the residency, you can roll it over to a mortgage on a 15-20 year time period.
So you said that if someone comes here, once they become a resident, then they can go to the banks and get a mortgage. When they're applying for their residency, are you meaning they've done that first, the application where they're then waiting 3 years, or it's after the 3 years when they get the final approved residency, then they can get the mortgage?
After the 3 years when they get the approval. However, we have seen some banks, because you see, the situation with banks is like a back and forth, like a crab dance. Because banks need the business, they need the money, they need to allocate the funds that they have in the vault. They need to allocate it in the street, in the business. And then there is the regulatory authority that imposes upon banks restrictions, compliances, a framework. So it goes back and forth. Sometimes they find a way to be more liberal. And we have seen one of the banks, for example, BAC, they have started to open bank accounts with the receipt that you filed for residency. So things could change, in time, and there could be lending also.
You mentioned private lenders being around 12%. Now, a lot of people hearing that are going to say that's insane. 12% is a lot. But if you've got no other choice, then it's something that you start to consider. Where are most of these private lenders from? For example, if someone hires you and they want your assistance buying a place and they do want to take out a loan with private lending, where would most of your contacts be? Are they from the USA or they're based here for the private lenders?
Some of them are from the US. They're Americans established here for many years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they lend money. Or some of them are Costa Ricans, mostly in San Jose. They're mostly located in San Jose, yeah.
So that's real estate. Now, talk to me a little bit about concession. So, for example, where we are sitting right now, this is Sunset Del Mar Beach Resort on Estoril Este. This is concession land. So this is a 25-year lease. I'm told that in Jaco, that's one of the rare exceptions where there is titled land on the beach. Can you talk about the process to buy concession land and how widespread is it around Costa Rica?
Everything that was titled before 1977, like Jaco, it was titled, is what we call fee simple or domain. Full domain, full ownership. It's fee simple, it's titled, okay? And what wasn't titled by 1977, when they passed the Maritime Terrestrial Zone Law, which is the concession law, it was declared to be concession. It's a frame of 150 meters counting from the National Geographic Institute markers that are put on the beach. The markers define the boundary of the beach. Okay. And the land. It's a 50 meters lane of beach, the National Geographic Institute marker, and then you have 150 meters concession. It is administered by the municipality. It is in the form of a contract, a 20-year renewable lease. 20-year renewable lease contract with the individual who is exercising possession of the land in good faith, publicly, pacifically, peacefully, and with just cause, with a legitimate cause. That individual has the right of possession and then applies to the municipality concession department for the contract application. It is necessary, of course, that we have the markers of the National Geographic Institute, mojones, markers, and there has to be a zoning plan, soil use zoning plan, plan regulador, issued by the municipality council jointly with the Board of Tourism, the ICT, and the Ministry of the Environment, MINAE. Those are the three entities that govern the zoning plan. Okay. Just to give you an idea, it takes about 3 to 5 years to make a zoning plan of 1 kilometer of beach frontage, and the cost starts around $30,000 if you hire a private consulting company, which is what we advise. Hire a private consulting company, engineering consulting that specializes in this, like CTA, for example, in San Jose, $30,000, and they will develop the zoning plan through the institutions involved. Then the municipality will issue it, approve it, the council, and then you sign 20-year lease with the major in a protocol book of indentures of the notary public, okay. And you will pay a registration tax in the National Registry, and the concession will be titled, and that's what we call titled concession. The concession gets titled. Obviously, when the concession is titled, the land value is worth more, right? Because you have a titled concession instead of rights of possession, which are just the rights in abstract ownership rights, okay. Instead of the title concession. It's good for 20 years. The tax is higher. It's from 2 to 5% instead of a quarter point. Uh-huh. It's called canon. The name of the tax is a canon. Yes. The name canon. It's 2 to 5% residential, commercial, or touristic. 2 to 5%. You pay to the municipality, and once the lease expires, you apply for a renewal. You are entitled to the renewal. The renewal involves the process of application of the renewal, but it's automatically granted that you will get it. It's not discretionary that they will not grant you. The exception to the rule would be if you are in violation of the urbanistic code, if you are building breaching the setbacks or the height, if you went beyond the height, or if you are damaging the environment, if you're creating an environmental impact negative, then they would not renew it. So that's the regime with concession, and because it was in 1977, not all of Costa Rica was titled by 1977. So we have more or less 5% is titled oceanfront, 5% of the Costa Rican coast, okay. Which is like 3,000, somewhere 2,500 kilometers, somewhere there. 5% is titled, including Jaco, Herradura, Punta Arenas, and some beaches in Guanacaste. Okay. A few of them, very few of them, right. Like Junquillal, for example, Playa Venado is titled, and Junquillal in Guanacaste. The rest of the country, 95%, is concession regime. And not all of it is titled concession because they're still in the process of developing the zoning plans.
Okay, so someone wants to buy a house on the beach. Most of the time they're going to be buying a 20-year lease concession.
The procedure varies a little bit from the procedure to buy fee simple or domain, regular land, because it will involve, if it's a title concession, of course we will check it in the National Registry that is titled, we will review the lease contract, but we also then, we approach the municipality concession department and we obtain an official copy of the file. The municipality has a record with files of the concession, so we'll get a copy of the file and we will study it all the way to the beginning of the possession, the original possession from the outset.
Okay.
And we will review the legality of the file, that the whole process was done in compliance. Once we get a letter from the Muni concession department saying that the concession is in good standing, and then we do the closing. It's more cumbersome to transfer a concession because you require approval by the municipality council, and it's a bureaucratic procedure. So what we usually do is, it is advisable and wiser to have the concession under a limited liability company or a corporation, and then what we do is we transfer the corporation. You buy the corporation as the holding vehicle of the concession, and then we appoint the buyers as the new directors, and we present the letters to the municipality, the documents attesting who the new owners are.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about real estate. Just on that topic, if a foreigner comes here and they want to buy their primary residence, do you recommend they buy it individually or they form a company with an attorney such as yourself?
Yeah, that's a very common question. As a foreigner, you are entitled to buy property physically, in your physical name, because foreigners have the same rights as nationals in Costa Rica under Article 11 in the Constitution. But however, as an estate planning or as a matter of strategy or an estate planning solution, it is advisable to incorporate a limited liability company exclusively to hold the title of the property, because it will protect the real estate property from your personal liability. For example, in a car accident, if you were in a car accident scenario and you cause an injury, you would have a civil liability automatically, and the property would be exposed, compromised. They could go after the property and attach it with an injunction, and therefore the asset is exposed. So if you have it in a limited liability company, it protects the asset for civil purposes and criminal purposes from your personal liability. Another solution with the LLC is that you can appoint your heirs or your children as beneficiaries of the company in case something happens to you. It's called a corporate survivorship. So they would attain automatically control of the property were you to be absent by death, in resulting of death. Another benefit of the LLC is that it pays a quarter point less when you sell the property capital gains tax, because the LLC is regarded as a resident of Costa Rica for capital gains tax purposes. If you were a foreigner, you don't have residency in Costa Rica, for capital gains tax purposes, you would be regarded as a non-resident, and you would pay 2.5% capital gains tax instead of 2.25%, and a repatriation tax. That wouldn't happen with the LLC. So that's another benefit of having the LLC.
So let's say there's a foreigner and they're looking at this from the standpoint of acquiring assets in Costa Rica, for example, purchasing real estate, but they're very conscious of asset protection. They want to make sure that their assets are safe. Compared to the other countries out there, where would you rate Costa Rica as far as laws around property from an asset protection standpoint?
This is a very interesting question too. It is important to understand that asset protection is an estate planning tool or an estate planning solution to structure legally, to structure juridically the holding of your assets in order to preserve them for inheritance purposes as an estate planning solution, and in order to protect them from arbitrary encroachment. For example, frivolous plaintiffs, frivolous lawsuits, arbitrary encroachment, extortion, or any other type of predatory activity by third-party individuals. And also from the notion that it's a sovereign right. It's a sovereign right to protect what you rightfully and legitimately own, your estate, your property estate to protect it and keep it in the family. We have in Costa Rica, perhaps not as in the United States, a litigious society. Is not that level of litigious activity. There could be some scenarios, for example, a disgruntled worker. If you had a worker and you fired them, or there was a termination of the labor relationship, or again a car accident liability situation, car injury situation, or any other type of relationship that could cause to arise a claim against your properties. So in that case, what we have is several tools to hold the asset. One of them is the more basic one is the limited liability company, as I explained before. Another tool is the trust. That's Article 644 of the Code of Commerce. We have the trust chapter. Trust chapter establishes that the trust becomes and constitutes an autonomous estate, an autonomous patrimony separated from the settlor or the beneficiaries of the trust. So for legal purposes, it's considered a separate entity that has its own purpose under the trust contract, and therefore cannot be claimed by third parties. For example, in a living trust, for example, or a inheritance trust to pass the property to your heirs, it wouldn't be object of the settlor, of the personal liability against the settlor or of the settlor. Another instrument very interesting that we have is called the mortgage bond. What is a mortgage bond? It's a securities, a certificate, a mortgage certificate as securities, but it's to the bearer. To the bearer. It's a mortgage contract done in the notary book, protocol book of indentures. It gets recorded in the National Registry. The difference with the mortgage is that you have a creditor identified in the mortgage contract. With the mortgage bond, there is no creditor identified. It's just a certificate, which is a security. Título valor is a security. The National Registry gives you this security, and you put it in a safety deposit box. It's to the bearer. So whoever holds the security has the right to claim against the property and foreclose it. So what this does, it will protect your property from forgery, a case of forgery or identity theft. If for some reason, somebody attempted to steal your identity or forge your identity and transfer the property, fraudulent conveyance, an embezzlement, action of embezzlement. With the mortgage bond, they couldn't take control of the property because they need the certificate, the paper that you have in the safety security deposit. Okay? The catch is that if you lose it, to replace it, you need to deposit the same amount of money in escrow for 10 years in the civil court to get a replacement. So you have to be very careful not to lose it. There are other estate planning solutions. For example, you can incorporate a company, for example, in Panama to hold the Costa Rican property, or establish a trust in Panama or in any other place. For example, a Delaware LLC could own the Costa Rica company or could be the trustee for a Costa Rica trust. The possibilities are very wide, very open possibilities. But with a trust, with an estate planning trust, that's a very good tool for protection, tested in courts in Costa Rica. The trust is a very solid institute. We even have hydroelectric dams that are in securitization trusts, and there is a Banco Improsa, who specializes in trust services.
I want to go back to real estate for a moment, and this is also out of personal interest. Let's say that someone wants to develop a property they have, and they want to build condominiums or something like that. They have a concession property, and it's originally zoned for, say, a hotel. They want to build condominiums and sell off each condo. What would be the process to do something like that?
If the zoning in the zoning plan is for tourism, and you're going to condominiumize the property, develop condominiums, you will have to start by filing a proposal to the municipality council to change the zoning. And the zoning plans are changeable. Nothing is written on stone. You can change them if you present a serious proposal to the municipality council, and what the benefit is going to be. In this case, the taxation, because there will be more taxation for the municipality from the sale of the units and the real estate ownership tax. It's very likely that the municipality will approve the changing of the zoning plan to condominium, provided you comply with the urbanistic code regulations and there is no environmental impact, of course, that you prove that there is no environmental impact. Once the municipality approves your changing of the use to condominium, then you will have to hire an engineering or architect firm to develop the blueprints, the plans, cadastral plans and blueprints for all the condominium. individual private units, common areas, and semi-private areas of the condominium, like parking, garbage, swimming pool, clubhouse. Once all this is printed in the blueprints, in these cadastral maps, and they're approved by the agencies involved, the Board of Tourism, the National Housing Zoning Institute, the Environmental Ministry, and the municipality, then you condominiumize the unit. And we write a master deed of condominialization of the title. And the title gets transformed into a condominium title that will have a mother farm, what we call mother farm or mother title, and there will be the condominium units. Title individually as units, and there will be the common areas. This master deed is recorded in the National Registry, and you will have individual titles for the units. This whole process could take 3 to 5 years, and you're looking at not less than $25,000 to $30,000 in engineering and legal fees just to start with, let's say, with a 10, 20 units condominium. That would be like the basic from the outset. Once the units are titled, they can either be sold as is, as individual units, or you could put them in corporations. You could make limited liability companies, one for each unit, and sell them to the individual buyers, because it would be easier and faster to transfer the individual unit LLC that holds the condominium unit in the concession than transferring one unit of the concession every time. Because the fact that you're dealing with concession, you would need a municipality approval every time. So it is highly advisable that we either put them in condominium, in limited liability holding companies, one holding company, LLC for each unit, or we could go with a sometimes they go with a corporation. They make a corporation with the amount of shares as units, and then they sell you one share from this corporation. One mother corporation owns the whole thing. They allocate the shares. They are called allocated shares, and they sell you the share. The only problem we have with this is liability, because if there is a slip and fall scenario or liability scenario, they'll be suing the whole corporation, the whole condominium. So you have to have very good insurance. You have to make sure you have good insurance if you go under that scenario. Another tool would be a REIT, a real estate investment trust. So the trust owns the whole condominium on the maritime concession, and then you buy a trust unit. Here, you don't have the shared liability because it's a trust environment.
I think you guys can tell from this interview, Jose, you really know your topic. And yeah, how long have you been an attorney for?
Since December 1995. I have done over 2,000 real estate transactions with international investors, 100% success rate.
So if you are thinking about moving to Costa Rica and you are looking for an excellent attorney, especially with your real estate, but Jose can help you in many different areas, which I'm sure you guys can tell from this interview. How do people get in touch with you?
Usually, most of the times we get clients by referrals, because over the years, since 1995, in the area, we've developed a good relationship with the clients. You can check my website www.crlaw.info, or my email, costaricalaw@yahoo.com. That's costaricalaw@yahoo.com. Feel free to contact us and we'll give you a consultation.
Excellent. So that website again is crlaw.info. Okay, crlaw.info. Get in touch with Jose. Jose, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. Yep. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And guys, I will see you in the next episode. Until then, we'll speak soon.